Hey everybody, I'm honored today to have on JP Mikhael, and I've known JP for a while. I've had actually the opportunity to work with JP. He did really well in powerlifting, and he's somebody that I've actually learned a lot from too. My regret is not knowing him a little bit earlier because it would have been really cool to had interviewed him for Jailhouse Strong. But we got the opportunity now, and I think he's a perfect person to talk to during this quarantine. So tell us a little about your background for people that don't know you.
Thanks for having me. First off, it's an
I'm
honor.
honored.
Definitely, I learned a boatload from you. Especially stumbling across. I think I first stumbled across your book, Power Building Basics. Doesn't it say something like Metroplex
Yeah.
Power Building
Power
or
Building
something like
Basics.
that? That's how I first learned about you, and I was like, man, this is a lot. At the time, we'll get into it. I was like, man, this is a lot like what I'm doing. Because, you get a lot of people who are so far-fetched. Everybody seems to be so one-sided.
Sure.
And you were like the first guy I came across who was like, you could do it this way, you can do it that. Like, you weren't like, we only do it this way. But anyways, my name's JP Mikhael. I own a strength and conditioning facility in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. We do personal training, one-on-one, small group training, and larger group training. A little bit of it all. I'd probably say I got a wide population of people from a lot of just general fitness, people who just train for their mindset to go out in the world and whatever, conquer being a real estate agent, to now getting a lot more athletes, starting to grow, a lot more high school. And probably the little niche with me is probably high school football players. Probably starts with my son being a football player. But I've been in business since established 2016. Before that, I did 9 years in federal prison for conspiracy to distribute marijuana. I was indicted by the federal government in 2007, and then from there, I kind of
now
feel
you
like
just open up shop in California, no problem.
Yeah, I know. What's crazy is right down the street from my gym, I'm sitting at a stoplight, and I'm like, what does that mean? It was something green, and I'm reading, and I was like, medical marijuana. And I was like, oh my God, right by my gym. Here I am. I did 9 years for it, but lo and behold, I'm real passionate about this because this is the one thing that I had each day to do that made me feel good about myself that they couldn't take from me. And I felt like I kind of went on like this 9-year study of experimenting with different training styles and not really like being that guy who's like, how like when everybody does something, they kind of drink the Kool-Aid. Oh, this is the end all be all.
Yeah.
I always kind of like, when I was doing something, I always felt like I was like, oh man, we're missing this. Like and basically my first 4.5 years, well, a little bit. So when I got indicted, I was working out at Gold's Gym, right? And I used to do like the traditional kind of bodybuilder program, chest try Monday, back by Tuesday, legs Wednesday, if I really did them. I didn't really know what I was doing. Played a little flag football. But I thought when I went to jail, I looked, I was like, at the time, I think I was probably around 225, I was probably like 10, 11% body fat.
What do you weigh now?
Good. Huh?
What do you weigh now?
Right now, I'm right at 225.
Okay, cool.
I'm a little bit lighter right now, just kind of doing more general fitness, just more feel good, look good, feel good programs. But when I was powerlifting for you, my God, I shot up through the roof. Unbelievable. Crazy.
Yeah.
But having just that, lo and behold, how my journey kind of started was I got put in an environment, didn't have access to any weights. Also, didn't have access to the best nutrition. So here it is, my mindset, I'm trying to hold on to
Was there
muscle
any
mass.
weights in there? So let's go back. Was there any? Because I know some federal prisons have weights where obviously state ones don't. Was there anything in there?
Yeah, well, so my first 4.5 years, there was no weights, but I lucked up. My last 4 years, I got sent to an institution that still had a weight pile in Pensacola, Florida.
Okay.
So basically what they do, in county jails, there's no weights. County jails are probably the worst time you could do.
That's what everybody
County
says.
jails, like, it's the worst nutrition. I mean, you're in a predicament where you can't gain muscle because you don't have the calories. So what do? And then you're in an environment where now your life could possibly depend on your level of physical fitness. So you got to shift your kind of mindset. Like, I needed a gas tank. And how I found this out was my brother got indicted with me. So me and my brother were together. The difference was he was sedentary, hadn't worked out for 3 years. I'd been training, thought I was like, I did America's Arnold program, thought I was tip-top shape, you know. And me and my brother were on the top tier, and I saw this guy, he was doing burpees, and it was the first time I ever saw him. And I said to my brother, I was like, man, what kind of Jane Fonda shit is that? Like, I was like, I'm not doing, like, what is that? And we were still, like, pounding, like, push-ups, doing pull-ups off the staircase, like, kind of still applying this bodybuilder mentality to the basic calisthenics. And my brother was a little bit open-minded to me. He said, man, let's try them. Like, we only got so many things we can do. We can run up the stairs. There's only so many things. So we got in there and we did them with the guy. We went and told him, we were like, hey, man, can we get in? Can we do these with you? He said, yeah, meet us down here tomorrow. And he took us through a traditional prison, you go, I go format is what we call it.
Okay.
You go, I go. So basically, you're going to do 15 burpees. I'm going to do 15. You do 14, I do 14. Kind of a 1-1 work-rest ratio.
Sure.
And Josh, man, this is back before, like, CrossFit, the jumping burpees. This is just the up, down, push up. And I came up, the first set, I was like, I noticed that large O2 deprivation. And then by that third, I'm like, and I'm looking at my brother, he's breathing the same way. And I kind of felt the dude automatically saw we weren't going to make it. He was like, so he slowed it down to like a 1-2 work rest ratio amongst 3 people. You go, you go, you go. And right then, my training, I was like, man, something's wrong. I was like, I got to get my wind up. I was like, this is probably one of the best things I can do to get my wind up.
Yeah.
And from that day forward, for like 5 years, I probably did burpees 3-4 times a week. And, you know, I kept them in even as I went to the weight pile. So from there, I was in the county jail. From there, I went to doing pull-ups, like off of we didn't have pull-up bars. We do pull-ups off of the shampoo rack in my cell. So I was doing push-ups, pull-ups with my hand, kind of having to clip it like this. So when I came back to gripping, I was actually stronger. But also at the same time, I was lighter. I dropped like 10, 12 pounds because I wasn't getting in the calories. Then I got sentenced, went off to Yazoo City, Mississippi, and this was like in federal prison, you have institution levels, right? So the highest level is like penitentiary, where you got like your lifers, and then it comes down to a medium high, and that's where I was at. You could have a life sentence in a medium high, but you had to have 10 years clear conduct. So I was around a lot of guys with like 20, 30-year sentences, a lot of gang culture, where like people are always talking about burpees, but like burpees are really popular amongst like Mexican gang culture. And they're really popular in the federal prison when you don't have anything else to do. I was in a facility where we didn't even have pull-up bars and dip bars, but we crafted them. Like we would do.
So that's perfect then. Okay. So what's right now in this situation? You said it before we got on here. It's testing people's mindset. So let's just say, okay, it may not be an excuse. There literally is some places are sold out of equipment. So that's that. Say you have nothing. What was you had nothing? So let's go through what you did at that institution exactly. What the routine
Absolutely, and that's what's funny because I had some of my high school athletes. They're like, I don't have a pull-up bar. I'm like, that's BS. I'm like, there's something around your house. You can
trees.
I don't believe you. There's something you can pull up on. Like there's something. Like my brother's on his back side of his porch, holding on to a 2x4. Like there's something. If you search hard enough, you can always find a spot to do pull-ups, and you can find a spot to do dips. We used to do dips in between, like the stall where you go to the bathroom. Like, and you can find a place to do just about everything. But I will say, pull-ups and dips become your compound movements. You start looking at, when all you have is body weight, you start looking at mechanical advantage, right?
Right.
So what's the best way I can load something? So maybe that's a dip, a pull-up, practicing a handstand push-up, practicing a single leg squat. You got to start thinking in terms of how can I get the heaviest load? And I know we've done videos in the past. Remember where I showed the partner's resistance on the back, on the push-ups, getting on top of your legs, doing your squats. So there's a way that you can find a way. we didn't have pull-up bars in this environment, and we would have to get in. They had pipes inside of a mop closet in the wall, and the CO would unlock them in the morning. And we had like 2 hours, enough time to get in there and get your 10 sets of pull-ups, basically. And guys would take 1 or 2 would go in at a time, walk out. 1 or 2 walk in. So you just kind of make do with what you got. We did, and you do a boatload of dips, pull-ups, get into like some plyometrics. A lot of times people can get in, like that's force production.
Of course.
You put maximum force production into the ground doing broad jumps, squat jumps. I mean, that's a great way to try to maintain.
I think that's a misconception is like people get so endurance happy with bodyweight training only, like thinking it can only be for conditioning, and you're dead on that.
Yeah. I tell you, a workout me and my son did the other day that was pretty good. It was 1 squat jump, 1 plyometric push-up, 5-minute rounds, and you go back and forth between. And I kind of get like the Wars Valley concept, a little bit of walk to try to keep power output as high as possible. And I was telling him, I was like, you got to put maximum force into the ground. That's a great way that somebody can get conditioning as well too, rather than just doing 50 bodyweight squats.
For sure.
Or something like that.
How was the food?
Anyway,
so the food?
I was at Yazoo. Go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
So was the food decent there? But the nutrition at this place at Yazoo?
Man, it was a lot of rice and beans. Best thing you could do is get a job in the kitchen, because if you can get a job in the kitchen, then you can get access to food. Or if you have money, then you can purchase from somebody who works in the kitchen to try to get in the food. Kind of tough to do, and I felt like basically what happened was I always felt like this, like we would make these bags, but then the CO, they take them. So it was always got to the point where I was just like, you know what, if I can't rely on it, I just don't want to do it. If I can't always do it. So it just got to where I just kind of shifted my mindset and went to more of a kind of an endurance style training, a fitness, like kind of thinking in terms of like an MMA fighter, like, okay, and then I'm going to use this to whenever I can get back to the weights to potentiate the future. So like if we drew up, a plan and we had our foundational block, that general preparatory period. Yeah. I know people use the term general physical preparedness, same thing, but also a general preparatory period where, hey, we're going to focus on some local area muscular endurance. We're going to lay off our spine a little bit. We're going to get explosive, especially now's a good time. I'm seeing it with myself.
Yeah, the guy in his 40s. That's why we brought you on. Keep going.
To get away from, let's get away from the barbell. Let's get our spark plugs back firing. Because if you've just been grinding like heavy reps, I found it with myself. I was like, oh shit. Like I used to, when I see you doing like the iron mics, the jumping lunges, I'm like, man, I used to get up on those things. Get away from it for a year or two. As you age, you lose that shit. Like you lose your spark plug. So now I've been focusing on, this is a good time for us to get that back.
Is it coming back pretty good?
Huh?
Coming back pretty good?
Yeah, I'm noticing. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's coming back, but it's still not coming back like how I want it to. I think I even remember hearing one of your things where you were talking about like running, and you were saying like you were looking at some guys running your age, and you were saying it just looked funny.
Oh, dude, I noticed it even earlier. So I noticed the first time, I didn't live where I grew up, but I came back to visit, and they were having an alumni football game, and people were like 10 years out of high school, so 28, and they're already running like, that they're 50 years old. And as Al Vermeil said that, one day I was talking to Al Vermeil, and he said something like, you want to know why old men have pancake asses? I'm like, no. Yeah, why? He's like, they don't sprint, and it's.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're just training slow twitch,
the fast twitch muscle fibers, you got to use them or lose them. And I think that's sort of like almost like one of your best anti-aging policies training-wise.
Yeah, I'm seeing that now. I agree 100%.
Where people usually go the opposite, like, oh, I used to do all that. Now I'm getting older. I just go to Gold's Gym and, pump up on machines. And then, like, they try to throw a football at their nephew's birthday party and throw out their shoulder or something.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's one thing and people don't realize, like, even though, like, some people, they think, oh, I'm too old to jump. Man, you could throw a med ball. You got to do something. You got to jump, though. There's got to be a way.
It's a process, too. I mean, because, like, for me, sprinting and stuff, I did like a couple years of like sub-maximal stuff to get back into it. It wasn't like just, oh yeah, I'm gonna come out here and just, because you got the horsepower still, but you're not, the car's not ready for the powerful engine until you kind of adapt to it.
100%. Yeah, I agree. I agree. What would you recommend for a guy, like, we don't have hills here? If you don't have hills, can you get that same kind of concept with a little bit of load behind you on a sled?
Dude, a little bit, but what you have right there is I'm envious of, because I just took advantage of it. I had to drive probably 20 minutes to get there. We got hills around here, but it's sand.
Yeah.
Sand in a sled with a light sled, dude, you're going to get the exact same type of thing. It's actually better because the sand, you got to think of the ground, it's kind of like a trampoline, it throws force back at you, but with sand, you sink in. So it's a very
What's
much
your thoughts
muscular
on a lot of these strength coaches? You see them all the time. Or these speed coaches. They talk bad about sand, running in the sand. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have, but those are like for Olympic sprinters that have like a perfect cadence and stuff. Like if you're just somebody that wants to get faster, you kind of, like me or you kind of wants to get slowed down, because I'm super fast, and I'm sure, and I know you are too, just by how explosive you are. So if we go full speed, we risk injury. I'd rather just be slowed down 10%. I guess if I had to train for, you get $1 million if you run 100 meters next amount of time, that would be a different way to look at it. But for like tactical athletes, people like us that don't want to risk the injury, I personally try to get slowed down. That's why hills, sand, things like that. But I'm sure if your cadence is perfect, like Usain Bolt, you start doing that, then you probably screw him up. But I'm not Usain Bolt. That's just a small component of what I'm doing.
Yeah. I also like the sand too for like strengthening athletes' ankles.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Only thing I thought about doing, we haven't tried some farmer's carries in the sand.
I've done that before. I did lunges today with a sandbag in the sand, and then
nice
heavy lunge, then drop it, and then sprint 40 yards after. So.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah,
oh yeah, good. Yeah, that's nice there.
But anyway, so kind of back to the quarantine. I don't want to get off track here because I think I got a lot to talk about right now. My fault there too. So is the training was something you kind of like, you think people right now it's going to kind of make them or break them with their mindset, something to look forward to? Because I think this is very relatable to your time in the joint, right?
Yeah, and it takes me back to, I saw a lot of guys come in jacked up. Guys would come in extremely jacked up. You're like, and when you've been down a couple of years and you see the guy come in, you're like, damn, you could tell the difference. Someone who's had access to the iron, and then all of a sudden you start seeing them start getting fluffy because they don't adapt. And the truth of the matter is that a lot of these calisthenics and stuff, they're harder, and especially for the bigger operator, they're harder. When you got to start pulling your big ass up and you start carrying your own engine, I use the term, and you shift your goals a little bit of breathing work, kind of start developing a little bit of fitness, you really start seeing, you're like, damn, this is a lot harder than, sitting down in these certain machines or just doing my regular training. But I've seen a lot of guys just get real pudgy and kind of wither away because they wouldn't shift their mindset and say, okay, I'm going to start trying to do something that might be a lot harder than what I'm used to. I've seen it happen 1,000 times. And what usually happens is the guys that do adapt, I see them, they might lose a little bit of muscle mass, but it's really not a lot, but they develop like tremendous fitness, like a fighter. You see them, they look like a little, maybe you're like, oh, after a year, 2 years time, the guy but they don't lose a whole bunch, man.
Well, and it potentiates, like you said, a future phase of training. So like if you're a powerlifter right now and you're not being lazy and taking advantage of this bodyweight training, like guess what? You just did your off season. You can start getting ready to peak for a meet when this whole thing's over.
And you will become great.
And you'll feel better.
Because your off season style of training is almost a bit of the same concept where you shift it to the strongman, bodybuilding, calisthenics. So you know that, but the rest of these guys out here, they just think the world's over. They're just like, oh, if it's not pulling a deadlift, they're not doing, like, dude, you don't understand. Take some time off of that. Let your lower back take some time off of that. Hey, you can do some jumps. There's a lot of things you could focus on right now and come back. And, oh, my goodness, you're going to be so – how many guys – I mean, if you think about it, how many guys are training and they really don't have a good base under them?
A lot.
I believe this, and if you have a strong base under you, you're going to prevent injury. your training is going to become better because now you recover better. I truly believe this stuff, it helps you recover in between workouts better. Like that's the thing that people, but I think people, if people really, they're going to look back when they open back up here, what, in a few weeks, maybe it's a month, and people are going to be like, man, I should have took that 6-8 weeks and really shifted my goals, did some stuff that I'm not used to, got out of my comfort zone, and came back. Training would have been fresh and felt better.
Well, it's sort of like, I think the prison analogy goes further. It's sort of a deal where time's either a resource that you use, like you used it wisely, you learned a lot about business, you got in better condition in the joint, where other people, now are using it for other reasons. So if you come out of here like, worse off than you started. I mean, if there's somehow financially or something, fine, but like you could become smarter, you could have more knowledge, increase some part of your physical fitness, and there's a lot of things you can do where time's a resource. You see what people's attitude. I've noticed it, even not even people going to jail, but people that go overseas on like defense contracts and stuff. You'll get some that like they're literally sitting like in wherever the hell they're at, Iran, Afghanistan, or Iraq, or Afghanistan, or wherever, and they get a contract. They work 12 hours a day. They have nothing else to do, and they're sitting at a desk, so it's not hard work. And they literally like get like buffets of steaks and stuff, like great food. Some people are like, "Oh man, let's take advantage of this. I can do so much volume, I recover." And other people are like, "Man, I just don't feel motivated anymore." It's like it's all about the mindset, and I think that's why it's so important to bring you out here, because you are somebody that did have that mindset and made the most of it. I've just noticed in our conversations, even on business, like certain things you learned in prison, you can apply to your business now, just like ways of dealing with people and stuff.
Absolutely. Like, and I look at that with even my clients and my members. Like, I think they learn, like, I think all of my members and clients, I'm a pretty open book. At first I was like, oh, I can't talk on this, but now I'm very open about it. And like, they have a bit of my culture in them, in the workouts, and they like it. They're cooped up. Everybody's like everybody, if you're going through something, you might be institutionalized. You talk about it all the time where you say individual over institution. You could be in mental prison, man. I was in a relationship after I got out of prison where I put myself in a mental institution. So people are going through things in their life where it all applies, and I look at, man, this person's in their office for 10 hours. How can I set their mindset? And people never talk about that. Everybody, you got all these gurus online, like talking about.
Yeah. So you're talking about people being institutionalized and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's could be going through something with their personal life, whether it's the job that they hate, they're cooped up in their office for 10 hours a day, or maybe it's a relationship or, something going on. It seems like everybody has something, right? So I always look at that with my clients, athletes, and I just feel like the mindset part's lost. You got all these people on like on Instagram, all these different coaches that are going back and forth over programming, and everybody's like trying to get out of doing the work. And like, I try to train these kids and teach, like, what about the mindset? Like, they're going to have to go work with coaches that are going to do some of the dumbest things on earth. I want to program my kid to be able to, on the fly, have buy-in with anybody and just be a beast at anything. Like, we can go back and forth about the dumb stuff that people do, but it's just,
we don't have the time. We'd be on it for a week. So
yeah. And I just think, like, what about developing people's mindsets? And that's where I try to. I feel like that's lost today.
Well, I think that's what people like. Someone like yourself or someone like me. We're not changing our message during this time. Like we've already said, anything outside your body is a luxury. The basics are not elementary; they're fundamental. But on top of that, we're not, at the same time, we're not like so hard-headed, like, oh yeah, you just do body weight and basic barbells, anything else is, for pussies. Like no, we're going to take advantage of tools we have, but we're not like, the bodybuilding bidder pumping up on machines all of a sudden, try my new bodyweight program for $59.99 or whatever it is on Instagram, This is what we've been saying all along. Been ready for us.
Yeah, exactly. And that, of course, would I love for every one of my people to have access to a bar to do some deadlifts before they go do some jumping lunges, some plyometrics or things. Absolutely, I would. But the truth, it's just not a reality. Not everybody has a barbell. But hey, we're going to do the best thing within the situation right now. We're going to take on each day as it comes. I remember I asked this guy, he had a life sentence when I was at Yazoo. And I never forget, he said, and I was thinking inside of my brain, he could see I was thinking about it, like kind of looking at him like, man, how's this guy? And he said, you know what? They gave me a life sentence, but I only have to do one day at a time. And I always took that as, hey, and I tell my guys, look, each day you have, that day is gone. That session, that workout, that training session, that's gone. And I think people are too caught up on, do we need a million different bars and bands? Do we need all this? I think it's the intent at which you do things. The intent at which you do it, that makes the best out of it. You know, hey, if all we have is our body weight, maybe we start off with trying to do some one-arm push-ups. And we know that that's the greatest way to load this horizontal pushing pattern.
Yeah.
We're going to start out with an eccentric figure. It's like, just think in terms of, I always try to think in terms of mechanical advantage and just doing the best that I can within the situation. And that's what I'm liking with some of my kids right now, them seeing is, hey, we're going to know when you come back in here who really did the work and who didn't.
For sure. Now, let me ask you this. What about, this is a little off subject though, talk about prison. What about racially, does it, these exercises like kind of transcend those boundaries that are traditionally thought of? Like, say, you talk about the Mexican guys doing burpees. You can't just, like people, like at least watch movies, like say, can't communicate. So are you able to like transcend those lines that are normally up by physical training in prison?
Oh man, I'm glad you brought that up. So my first prison that I was at in Yazoo City, there, two things that federal prison is probably some of the most segregated. It's some of the most segregated you'll ever see in your life. I didn't grow up like that, but when I came in, it's automatically, what gang are you in? I'm not in a gang. Okay, what race are you? I'm white. Where are you from? I'm from Florida. Okay, you're in the white guy from Florida car. That's your gang. And you're not even a gangbanger, but that's how you get labeled in federal prison. Two things that you don't work doing in these higher institutions is, you're not supposed to eat with people outside of your race, and you're not supposed to work out with people outside of your race. And I felt like I was real instrumental in breaking down that barrier. And lo and behold, I used to do burpees. It's a funny story you brought this up. I used to do these burpees, and I had a Mexican friend that him and I were in jail together for like a year before we went to prison. His wife got to know my family, and him and I still used to work out together. And some people you could tell some people kind of fawned upon, like looked at it, like, but nobody ever said anything because the way we trained. They were like, oh, okay, these dudes are trained to go. They saw the way that we were training. Well, we used to do our burpees, and we used to do this, what I was telling you about earlier, the 1-1 work-rest ratio, 20 down. Like, you'll do 20, I'll do 20. Well, there was this black guy named, his name was Black Man, and he used to have about 40 guys out on the basketball court in formation.
That's awesome.
And they would do 500 burpees every Tuesday and Thursday. They would do 500 burpees, but they did them a little bit differently. They did them in a 1-for-1, you go, I go format. So you would do one, I would do one, and we would go back and forth to do 500. And I used to look at them.
How long would that take?
Usually take about 40 minutes.
Yeah,
take about 40 minutes. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Unicorn work call, he's out there. And he had about 40 guys, and it was all black guys. And he knew, like, each day I'd set up in, like, another basketball court next to him, and I had a couple guys working out with me. And he's like, he see me looking at him all the time, And one day he said to me, he's like, man, you want some? You want some? I was like, yeah, I want some. Because I was like, man, can I do this?
Yeah.
And I took a leap of faith, and I jumped in there, and I did it. And I know people are like, dude, what is this white dude doing? Like, is like you like, what are you doing? You're going against the. And then from that day forward, like, the Mexican came, some other white guys came, and then it just broke down that barrier in that prison where everybody started coming to his burpee. 500 burpees, like, legitimately, I have certificates. I wish I could find them showing that I did it. But, like, you'd be surprised. Like, I'm 350 in, and I'm like, fucking shoulders are fucking burning. Like,
dude,
like soap dripping, and I know I'm probably eating through muscle. Like, but I don't care. I'm doing this for my mindset. Like, this is what I need mentally for that day. And you're seeing these guys in front of you do it, and you're like, nah, I can't quit. I got to stay in there and do it. And I did it, man. And then from that day forward, I started doing his with him once a week, and then I do mine my way once a week. And it kind of broke down that barrier in the prison. So I do. I think people who train, like, have a common respect for others that train, and kind of, you could tell a lot about a person from the way that they train, the way that they do it, if they got integrity, do it the right way. So I truly feel like I helped break down that barrier at that prison. Now, after I worked my custody level down, I worked my custody level down to a low. There was like no racial tension, everybody intermingled. And then I made it to a work camp, where I made it with a weight pile. And I was like, oh man, first thing I went back to the weight pile, I was like, I'm trying to put back on some size.
What'd they have?
Oh man, it was a busted up weight pit. It was under like this shed, had about 5 barbells, old school like York dumbbells. You know, like the dumbbells that guy Zach Evanesh always shows?
Yeah.
Has like those dumbbells. Had an old cable set, like everything you needed. They had everything you needed. You had to work out, but you worked out in combat boots. You had to wear your combat boots out to the weight pile, and you had to be in like your green prison pants. And you had everything you needed to get the job done. Like, I truly felt like when I stumbled across your book, that Power Building Basics, it was during that time where I was doing kind of the power building concept, a bench, a squat, a deadlift, an overhead press, some accessory work, that was involved, dumbbells, and body weight, basically. And that's always been like the foundation of my program. Like, I never was like that guy. And that's what I liked about your information, because I was like, everybody's so, it's this way or it's this way. But it's like, you were that guy who was like, hey, we do a little bit of this with this. Like, it goes together. It's not, you know what I mean? You can only load your body weight so many different ways. We know that's not the end all be all. We know we need a force production component. We need some type of heavy squat, some kind of deadlift, some bench rep. Like, I love workouts that are like a good, and I take my son to them, like a 5x5 bench press. Then we go into like a shit ton of pull-ups and dips and push-ups and stuff. Yeah. Or like, I love like what I did today. I mean, granted, I probably put in more general fitness, but today we did five bench press coupled with 10 reverse pec deck, 10 reps with I've been doing a lot of 10 reps with a 10-second ISO hold at the end. I really like that. 10 reps, 10-second ISO hold, 5x5, 10 there. And then I did a couple sets of 4x12 incline dumbbell bench. Then I went into like 10 sets of dips and pull-ups and, just stuff like that. Just kind of, that's probably like the meat of my programs. And that's probably what I was doing then,
And what about in prison, like, of like actually like skills you've applied? What kind of skills are you learning there that you apply to business? I know you probably didn't have a business mentor in there, but you've obviously, because your gym's like thriving right now.
Yeah. Oh man, I'd probably say just the problem with federal prison is there's a lot of people you could talk to. Like, I'd probably say like the classes that they have and stuff, some of them are cool, great, but you want to go find out who's teaching them, because it's inmates that are teaching them. So, like, my grandfather said it best. He said, take a little bit from everybody. And I've always kind of stuck with that concept. You might go in there and get a teacher who's been down 25 years teaching curriculum from 30 years ago, but there's guys like, I had a guy who was an economic developer out of Tallahassee, like, helped me with my resume, who was probably one of the smartest guys I've ever met my last 4 years. And then I taught wellness and nutrition with a lot of doctors and stuff. So I think it's kind of like, how you go out and you'll go interview these people who are in prison, or like you'll go learn from these certain inmates, like kind of the same thing. Like, you go learn from people. Hey, what'd you do for a living? Okay. And you just kind of pick up and learn information that way. Is some of the best stuff. Just like if someone asked me, well, what's your credentials? Do you have a degree? I don't have a degree. I've got some ISSA certs. And, you know, I've got 3 of those certs, and I went and took Joe DeFranco's CPPS cert, and I got a little bit, but I'd probably say the information that I learned is more in some of the books that I studied and that me going to apply in the trenches on people.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I really feel like that, my ability, like the practical sense. Like I get guys who come in here for jobs, right? I'll post like I'm looking for a trainer, and these guys got like this master in science, coached at this certain collegiate setting, and he comes in and has got no personality. Like walks in, doesn't even look like he works out.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you got to be the most jacked up person in the world. You go to shake their hand, and it's like they don't even know how to shake your hand. And I'm like, man, this guy's he's not gonna cut it. He's not gonna be able to. Are you gonna be able to walk in here at 4:45 a.m. and light somebody up 5 a.m. and be alive and give them a good session? Or are you gonna be? Or they're so caught up in like these science principles. Like, dude, you got 50 minutes with a client. You got to get the work done. You can't be all this stuff taking 3-5 minutes in between each set. You know, you got to be able to adapt and ready to go. So. I don't know. I would probably say just meeting people along the way and kind of being that guy that's like, hey man, what is it that you do? How can I learn from you? Rather than that person who sits back and sees somebody does something and, you know, it's kind of discouraged by it.
Well, yeah, I remember one of the book I read a long time ago. A line stuck out in there. It said like, about you're talking about these classes and all this, and the guy was saying something along the lines of, a lot of people view how to earn money as just getting an education, where other people view it, the people that are successful view it as they have an idea, that idea solves a problem, they get compensated for the idea that solves a particular problem. Where, a lot of people, there's how many academic millionaires are there if you're trying to learn business? It's the same type of thing here. You're saying it's like, obviously it's good to take certifications. I highly advocate it and all that stuff. But at the same time, you can't just be that guy that walks into your gym and doesn't know how to shake hands. Like, I mean, because no matter how well you know science, there's a lot of different good ways to do things, and if you try to do every single one of them all the way, you're going to screw somebody up. So you're not an artist. There's a huge component that's underrated of this is being an artist. Like, oh yeah, I learned how to paint here, do this and that, and you could just put it all together, and it just looks like just someone dumped paint on a sheet rather than a beautiful portrait.
Yeah, man, it's funny, man, because I got this one guy. I think I told you about him that. This guy, he did some prison time. This guy's a genius when it comes to like that ART.
Oh, the stretching guy. What are you talking about? Yeah.
Oh my God, this guy's all over the place. Like I've tried bringing him in, and I'm like, you got to figure out. I was like, you can't be like a doctor. When someone goes visits a doctor, the doctor doesn't spill everything they know on them. Like you got to figure out your progressions, your regressions. Just give people 2 take homes, man. Like he's all over the place. I think. My success has been my ability to listen to what the people want. Like when I first opened, I had an ego. And I didn't even know I had an ego, right? So I was like, take for example, high school football players. So I'm in the private sector, and legitimately, I battle with training. I battle because they train in school, and they have a strength coach in school. So here it was, I had this kid, and I'm squatting him 5 a.m. before school, and he's telling me, yeah, our coach, they squat us 3 times a week. And finally it dawns on me, at the time I had an ego, well, he doesn't coach the squat, now I coach it.
Yeah.
Finally I start thinking, well, let them have the goddamn squat. This is what we're going to do. You know what I mean? We're going to work on your hamstrings. We're going to work on your single leg strength. We're going to work on your ankles. And that's when I started realizing, okay, I need to put systems in place that I call it like I'm filling in the blanks. Like my son.
You're filling in the gaps.
Yeah. We trap bar deadlift. I don't even back squat them because I know they're going to back squat them in school. I don't power clean them because I know they're going to power clean in school. I don't bench them because I know they're going to power clean. If we bench, we pause bench.
In that situation too, I don't know how it is there, but like what you've dealt with here is that was my primary clientele probably 10 years ago. And sometimes you go there and they're like, the football coaches and strength coaches are like, you're a godsend and, just do what you got to do and whatever you need us to back off, we'll do it. And they're really thankful. And other times it's like, they get an ego about it and you got to like what you're saying, filling gaps. So it's a very unique situation. I think that's probably what I was looking for in observing how you become successful is you're just going to do what's best for the client. And I think that's the key right there is doing what's best for the client. Like, yeah, I might think, somebody in the military, because their PT is going to vary once they're in there, what they're doing is really stupid. They're not going to actually ever do this. Or like, oh yeah, I think that, test for the police academy, it's really dumb, but it doesn't matter what I think. I got to get that person ready for the test, regardless of how physiological applicable it is, right? That's what they need right then and there. And this is what, they're not passing a test in your case, but you're just giving them what they need to fill in those gaps.
100%. I try to tell the trainers that all the time. I'm like, look, people who can afford personal training, the clients that you want can afford $65 an hour 3 times a week. Do the math. They're spending $700 a month plus. Those same people can actually afford to go on vacations. They can afford to go to nice restaurants. They can afford their wife's good home cooking that they've been eating for 15 years. You got to figure out how to train these people outside of just goals of looking better. Make them feel better. They're never going to, some of them are never going to, unless they want to carve out 16 weeks and get on a real strict nutrition plan. But most of them just aren't going to do it. But you can also make them feel better. Get them to do their first pull-up. Make their knee feel better. Things of that nature. So I think in the beginning.
And they can still have a little bit of sake and sushi every now and then.
Huh?
And they can still have a little bit of sake every now and then.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. You need to teach them. Like, I teach people how to enjoy that. Like, hey, okay, you're going to go out with your wife that day, have a good meal, eat a bunch of sushi, drink some sake. Okay, on that day, you're going to squat, you're going to deadlift, you're going to do a large multi-joint, your activity expenditure is going to be high, and you're going to take out a boatload of carbohydrates throughout the day. You might have a salad and a piece of fish, a light meal, and you're going to save your calories for the evening for that. And you got to be able to teach people to do those things so they can continue to get results. And that's the same thing, like, it's the same thing for everybody and anybody. Just in the private sector, I would say be adaptable and listen to the people, man. Because if I was doing what I did whenever I first opened, I wouldn't be there. I wouldn't be as successful as I am now. I realize that.
That's good advice.
General Pop's my bread and butter, and most of them just want a general program. They want a good full body stimulus with cardio blended with multi-joint movements. But it might not be the most evidence-based thing, but we can still do it correctly. We can still coach goblet squats. We can still make them do a full range of motion, and we can still get their heart rate up and still get some results. So,
well, it's funny you said about sake one time, and when Fred, you kind of turned it. You mentioned sake one time. So when Fred Hatfield and I were in Japan, right before he passed, they had. I tried sake there for the first time. It was good.
Yeah, I like hot sake.
They had mango sake that they call it because they didn't know English there, but they were like, I pointed the menu. The lady's like, mango. I'm like, I think that's mango. Yeah.
yeah. I like hot sake. You should see, man, in federal prison. Not to get off subject, but these guys, they do what's called rehydrate. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
No, before. Spit it out.
Oh, okay. Well, it's like June, July, Yazoo City. You just been out in the heat, dripping, just did your 500 burpees, and you come in and you hit your prison hooch, just a cup right before you get in the shower, and they rehydrate with it. And the buzz is just like, all it takes is a cup.
I would imagine. Oh,
yeah, you're ripped. Yeah, that's why I even tell some of my members, like the people who drink, I'm like, listen, if you have to drink and you're trying not to drink as much, one of the best times now to do it is do it post-workout, after a workout. I don't recommend driving. Do it at home, but you won't drink as much because you won't need as much alcohol.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's again, real-world advice. You don't get a textbook.
Yeah, I'm not recommending that to the world. Don't go out there driving and drinking, but I'm just saying.
No excuses nowadays in Ubers and stuff anyways.
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely. But I think, man, I'm real blessed, grateful to meet a guy like you, that kind of, concepts that I see are like, all right, this is applicable. Like, man, if I was applying some of this stuff that I learned in the real world setting, like, I'd go out of business. Whoops. Hold on. Let me end this real quick.
Yeah, you're good. Yep. So we're about to sign off here with JP, but I was hoping we can maybe get a decent story before we end this.
Oh man, I'll give you a little story. So one of my nicknames my last 4 years was the Creatine King. My creatine opera. I probably had in federal prison, everybody has a hustle, right? It's the same concept, but everybody's got to make money. Or just like out here, everybody's got to work. So some guys get into selling drugs, tobacco, alcohol, making wine. Some guys clean, right? Some guys will clean. Some guys cook, pay people to cook. Like there's all different. Some guys sell things like, I knew a guy who made $10,000 in 6 months selling garbage bags.
Wow.
Yeah, they needed the garbage bags to make wine with. But anyways, so this was my little hustle, and I believe this was the best hustle, hands down, in federal prison. And I had this operation going for, I want to say 3.5 years strong. So I went to the weight pod, I work out in the tank top. At the time, I was jacked up, I looked good. So I sold creatine monohydrate, and I had a Connect I used to get off of, I think the company was called ProSource. At the time, you could order.
Yeah, they're still around, yeah.
Okay. 1,000-gram jug, creatine monohydrate. I used to order 10 jugs at a time. And I want to say I paid around $30 per jug. Yeah. I remember at the time, GNC would do something where you could buy one, get half off, I think, for 1,000-gram jug of monohydrate. But I'd buy 10 jugs at a time, and I'd sell 200 grams monohydrate. So I'd break down one can 5 ways, 200 grams monohydrate for $20 commissary. So I was getting $100 off each jug. This was the sweetest operation because, one, if the COs caught me with it, I didn't get in trouble. They just take it from me. Because it wasn't like it wasn't alcohol, it wasn't drugs. It was a supplement. It was creatine monohydrate. They just like, Mikhael. And then I think one thing I learned just in business also too, like I wasn't a rat, but I wasn't like disrespectful to the officers. Like I was never like that guy, that loudmouth. Like nobody likes the loudmouth guy in the room, right? Like I'm not like, like I understand those guys are doing a job. They feed their family. Like I got kids. I respect that. Hey, how you doing, sir? Keep it moving. Like, and I think that's one thing that played a lesson that anybody could learn in life. Is just you never know who you're gonna meet. Be respectful to everybody. But I got away with this hustle for like 3.5, 4 years, and legitimately, that was how my last year, I ate like a king. And I probably came home. I think you had the picture when I was real swelled up from federal prison. It's probably the swellest I've ever been. I was like 245 because I was eating like 3 cans of salmon a day, eggs. Like and I had saved up for this to be able to do this my last year to be able to eat like this. But it was a nice little hustle. People would ask me, hey man, you blah, 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 working out. Like, man, you got creatine monohydrate, best thing for a federal prisoner. This little one supplement that works. So I would make about $70, $80 off of each jug. I kind of felt bad whenever I left, man, because I was like wanting to give the hustle to somebody, but nobody, like, I don't know, it's crazy. Everybody wanted to do like.
Want to sell cigarettes instead?
Huh?
Everybody want to sell cigarettes or something instead?
Cigarettes, porn, alcohol. Who knows what else? Man.
So what would the alcohol be like? Is it like just like hooch or something, or what?
Is it like what?
What kind of alcohol? Like
anyways, so my first 4.5 years, you could make wine off of honey's the best because you could order honey off a commissary, but you're restricted on how many you could order. You could only get like 2 at a time. So you try to send people to commissary to get it for you. Like, hey man, I'll give you, a couple dollars more for your honeys. Go purchase 2 honeys. But I think they call it a teddy bear in federal prison. I think, and I'm sure we'll get some people who comment on this. They could correct us. But I think it'd be like 6 teddy bears, right? And then you need to have the germ from the old wine batch. So a little bit of alcohol from it to kick it off. They call that kicker. In federal prison, you call that kicker.
Okay.
So you have your honey with that, and I like that always to me made your cleanest wine. But I've seen guys make wine with ketchup, potatoes, ketchup, or they melt down like on your water fountain. You have the 190 copper they call it 190, the hot water, and they melt down their peppermints or butterscotches for their sugar.
Yeah.
And then they use like, oh man, I've seen guys do stuff with grits, potato, ketchup. Like using the potato is not a bad object, but the best wine I ever had was get the orange juice or grapefruit. Get the oranges or grapefruits from the kitchen, fresh squeeze them with potato in your kicker or the honey. It usually takes like 7 days, and if it cooks off right, I mean, Josh, I've had some pretty good wine. I mean, solid. Like
Yeah.
you if it cooks off. The problem with it is that the prisoner's worried about getting his wine batch knocked off because he's got money invested in his batch. But you really want a solid 7 days to cook off, and then he's got his buddies pounding him away. Is it done yet? So they always start drinking it before it fully cooks off. You know? So it's like, but they're measuring. They're like, man, you might get a tip hurt. They're going to come do a search or something, so you don't want to get your wine batch cooked off. But if you can get a good, solid, cooked off batch of wine, I've had some stuff that, like, I'm like, man, like, that's pretty good.
You ordered a 5-star restaurant, huh?
Man, I'll tell you what, there's this IPA beer called Ghost in a Machine. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but if you ever hear of it, I think this thing's around 10%, but it reminds me of, it's like fruity of some of that prison wine.
Cool. Well, anything else before we sign off?
All in all, for the listener, I try to stay away from that stuff. A little bit of tequila, a little bit of vodka or hot sake, and I'm good. 1 or 2 shots, and I'm usually good.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else before we sign off, JP?
Man, I think that's everything. I would just probably tell the listener, like, you know, now's the time to use this time to potentiate the future. You know, you're not going to be training with just body weight only. Get out of your old mentality ways and just try to do the best you can. Work on the things that you hate. A lot of times everybody talks bad about stuff because they're not good at it. Like, don't be that guy. You know, go to the other side of the spectrum and try to work on your weaknesses, things like that. And I think you'll come back feeling better and you'll surpass a re-challenge and be better.
Yeah, I think it's a good time even further to develop your mind during this time too. So, like, you know, we're putting these interviews out here. You can watch this, learn stuff from this, read books, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I think people forget, like, man, realize that all this stuff, like what you say all the time is golden. Kind of wish it was mine, where you say anything outside of the barbell is a luxury. People got to realize all that stuff's man-made. Man, we were designed to go out 26-mile hikes, pull ourselves off of a cliff, get hungry, go hunt for prey. Like, those are things that people should think about. Do you have that? I always say predator mind state, and I'm not prey. So hopefully we can end off with that.
Appreciate it, JP.
Man.
All right. Thanks,
man. Absolutely. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Josh.